Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Bangalore Loom Fest, Bloom 2021. It is a platform to celebrate the National Handloom Day, brought to you by National Institute of Fashion Technology, Bangalore. We are talking about Karigar or Kala, celebrating the maker and the making of handlooms. This is a tribute to the artisans, to the weavers, master weavers, designers who are working to perfect the art of handlooms in today's ever-changing dynamics of technology and society. How can one sustain a craft centuries old tradition, keeping it current, making it contemporary, weaving it into our everyday lives? For putting our mind and heart into this debate, for some lovely, meaningful conversations, I would like to welcome our esteemed panel of experts. We have Sri Prasanna, founder, trustee of Desi and Charkha with us. Namaskar. We have Mr. K.H. Radharaman, who's the founder, CEO, and principal designer from the House of Angri. Welcome, sir. We have Mrs. Kalyani Pramod, designer artist, and also the Nari Shakti Puraskar winner for 2016. Good afternoon, ma'am, and welcome to the panel. And last but not the least, we have our own Karigar, Mr. Arjun Pal, who's a master weaver from Orissa. Handlooms, we are looking at weaving India's future. Just to give a background, the production of handlooms in 2018 to 2019 was to the scale of 49,176 crore. Indian handicrafts and handlooms are a big industry, 24,300 crore as of 2021 March. It is the as per the fourth All India Handloom Census, the number of households that are engaged in this activity of handlooms is about 31 odd lakhs. The sari and the handloom weaving has always been a huge industry, traditionally patronized by the royalty and the wealthy over many generations. But today, with the modern day, there is a growth, there's a huge need for modernity. There's a huge need for bringing in new material. Figuring out who are the modern day patrons, who are the change makers as far as the handloom industry is concerned. And I would like to start this session with our Karigar, celebrating our Karigar, Mr. Arjun Rampal, and asking him, he's a versatile master ikat weaver from Orissa, Bandha. He's known to be an innovator in his craft. And my first question is to Mr. Arjun Rampal, that what it takes to be a change maker. आप किस तरह से आज के में चेंज ला सकते हैं जिससे कि हमारे जो नए लोग हैं, नई पीढ़ी है, वो उसके साथ जुड़ी रह सके. अर्जुन पाल
जी, सबको मेरा नमस्कार है.
नमस्कार
जी, वो जो चेंज का बारे में जो क्वेश्चन आ रहा है, अभी जो टाइम चल रहा है, अभी जो टाइम चल रहा है, हर लोग चेंज चाहिए. चेंज मतलब लोग साड़ी का और ड्रेस का जो भी डिजाइन बनते हैं उसका टेक्सचर में चेंज चाहिए, डिजाइन में चेंज चाहिए, कलर में चेंज चाहिए, और सबका स्टाइल में चेंज चाहिए. और चेंज हम यार्न में कर सकते हैं, टाई डाई में कर सकते हैं, बांधा में कर सकते हैं. बांधा का हिसाब आप लेते हैं नौपटना में, और जो खंडवा एरिया में, उड़ीसा का में, कटक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में हूँ, तो इसमें एक जो खंडवा बेल्ट चल रहा है, इसमें पुराना से लोग बहुत सारी नेचर्स देख के डिजाइन बनाते हैं. और इस डिजाइन बहुत पुराना हो जाएगा तो बाद में अभी नया नया डिजाइनर आता है, और लास्ट में 5 कलर्स, ग्रीन, रेड, ब्लू, येलो, इसी टाइप का 4-5 कलर चल रहा है. अभी नया नया कलर मिक्स करके लोग चाहते हैं, वो इसी टाइप का चेंज चाहते हैं. और फिर भी क्या होता है, आगे से 2 टाइप का धागा लोग जानते हैं, एक कॉटन का है और एक सिल्क का है. अभी क्या होता है, फिर भी बहुत सारी फाइबर आता है, जैसे टसर भी पुराना है, और टसर का और अलग अलग घिचा छोड़ के फिर भी एरी का टसर का यूज करते हैं. और अभी लिनेन यूज करते हैं। और वो छोड़ के भी अभी जो नेचुरल फाइबर आता है, जैसे हमारा एलोवेरा यार्न आता है, रोज पेटल यार्न आता है, और इस टाइप का जितना बाम्बो यार्न हो और बनाना यार्न हो, वो सब का ऊपर भी कल्चर का भी बांधा होता है, जिसका डिमांड भी ज्यादा होता है। इस टाइप का चेंज
तो
चाहिए लोग।
तो
तो
आपका
नया
ये
नया।
कहना है अर्जुन पाल कि अगर हम नए यान्स का प्रयोग करें, उसको यूज करें, तो ज्यादा से ज्यादा नई पीढ़ी या नए लोग उससे जुड़ रहे हैं, लोग उसके लिए खरीदने को तैयार हैं वो साड़ियां।
हाँ जी, जितना नया होता है उसका खरीदने के लिए लोग भी
अच्छा,
है।
so in this discussion, I would now like to invite Sri Prasanna. He is the founder trustee of Desi and Charkha. Just to give a small background, Mr. Sri Prasanna has served as a director for Rangayana, Mysore. He has authored several books in the field of theatre and sustainable living, has major theatre production to his credit, such as Eklok, Katha, Tughlaq, Shakuntalam, Gandhi. He is the founder of Kavi Kavya Trust and Charkha Women's Multipurpose Industrial Cooperative Society. He has multitude of awards to his credit. I mean, I'll just quickly run through: Central Sangeet Natak Academy, Rajotsava Award by Karnataka State, Nandikar Award for Excellence in Theatre, Calcutta, Nataka Academy Award of Karnataka State, and many more. Today, we have invited him as the founder trustee of Charkha. It is a society which is managed by women, where the yarns are dyed using natural colors, woven by hand, and it is converted into garments, which is sold as the label or the brand Desi. So the question is to Mr. Prasanna: how is Charkha the change maker and bringing that change into handlooms today? Sir.
Thank you, Richa. Thank you, Susan. And nice meeting all of you who are there in the panel. We are having this discussion on the platform of Fashion Technology Institute. Fashion technology, and change are one end of the sector, a very important end of the sector. Designers come in this end, market comes in the end, business houses which have started, shops all over the country, they come in this. And also, but there is also the other end of the sector, and that is the end which I would call the village end. And in the village end, what is the significance of the handloom? We have, which we don't need to debate today. This is a question which was raised by Gandhiji in the last century. In fact, in the first 2 decades of the last century already, Gandhiji had very clearly said that low Indian village cannot on agriculture alone. He spent thinking of the agriculture labor, the small farmer, and women. I would like to restate, he was thinking of the women. And with them, he said, look, they cannot sustain unless we provide them alternative finance. And he decided, and he thought, and in fact, a lot of women helped him look for this in loops and khadi. I mean, he called it khadi. So I would like to draw your attention, because you're all sitting on the other side, which is a very good side, to the fact that we should look at the livelihoods problem of the sector. You see, change is fine, change is wonderful, but what about the volumes? You see, we all say that handloom is the fabric of the future. In fact, it is Desi and Charkha which the slogan up and said, handloom is the fabric of the future. Day by day, we are convinced that handloom is the fabric of the future, and also that only India can provide that market the world over. Because it's a fact that India has more active looms than the we can beat China, we can beat Vietnam, we can beat Korea, we can beat anybody in this. But you come to power loom, you come to the mill sector, you come to the fashion sector, you come to the synthetic fabric which is used all over Milan and Paris and everywhere. We will be chasing them. So the point is, as a livelihood sector, I am talking of this because we are talking to a government institution. After all, NIFT is a government institution. NABARD is a government institution. The Ministry of Textiles and Handlooms is a government institution. Their responsibility is to the people. What does it mean? It means that down below, the foundation has to be firm, and that foundation can only be livelihoods. Take, for example, NABARD. Till about 2 years back, NABARD thought that agriculture is be all and end all of the village. In fact, they had started FPOs, farm producer organizations. FPOs are in existence decades, but they had not even thought of introducing anything for the non-farming sector. But thankfully, this year, they have announced this year as a handloom year, and also they have taken measures to start OFPOs all over India.
Thanks.
I hope they also catches up with this very, very important issue. The problem with the ministry is the basic policy is wrong. I'm not talking of any one government, because this policy has been in place since maybe 7 decades, ever since we became independent. What is that policy? Put handlooms with textiles, which means the Hatkarga with the huge mills, Hatkarga with the power loom sector. And that would mean putting the sheep with the, with the you call it whatever, So this will not do. You are keeping the sheep the predator. And then you are also, putting a fence all around it. Khadi, for example, KVIC has put a fence all around the sheep and the predator, and they just don't want to open it. So I would say that the government also should open their eyes and decide that this is an industry and this is a different industry, and this is an industry which need not give 12% growth, but this is an industry which can actually give huge social income to the political party in power or to the government.
So, Prasanna,
this is what I want to say. Anji.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
मैं ज़्यादा बोल रहा हूँ, आप मुझे रोक लीजिए.
नहीं, आप बहुत अच्छा बोल रहे हैं, लेकिन पॉलिसी मेकर्स अनफॉर्चुनेटली यहाँ है नहीं. And there was a very interesting happened in the morning session with Jaya Jetli ma'am, and she said ki nowhere in the world government makes policy or government is involved in handlooms. It is the industry which brings the change. So this is a good point that was raised by Shri Prasanna, and I would now want to bring into the debate Mr. Radha Raman. He is the founder, CEO and principal designer of the House of Hungary. He is also the creative director for the design label Advaya and their luxury ready-to-wear label Alamelu. So he being a corner.
Allow me to finish.
Yes, sir.
Would you allow me to finish?
Yes, please go ahead, sir. Prasanna ji.
What I want to say, I'll do in half a minute, but
yes,
you should tell us if the time is up 2 minutes in advance. I was not part of your other panels. I don't know that this has been discussed. But anyway, the point is, even in designing, even in aesthetics, this issue can be seriously taken up. What does it mean? We should start designing coarse fabric. We should start designing garments instead of just focusing on saris. You see, if you want to sell, we should actually make the coarse fabric, which will be produced in huge quantities all over the country. If we all put our heads together, then that should become the design end, and the designers and the entire city should move towards make this popular, which I believe can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prasanna ji. We will come back to you. There is no fixed time and a slot. We are just having a conversation and the conversation will flow. So thank you very much. And I think this whole initiative of National Handloom Day is to bring a conversation, bring a narrative where everybody in the society kind of evaluates that, possibly looks into their wardrobe, and at least on a day like today, chooses to wear handloom if they otherwise don't. So coming back to the debate where we were saying what the role of industry, I would like to bring in Mr. Radharaman. I would be repeating myself, but I will say he's the founder, CEO, and principal designer for House of Angri. He's also the creative director for Advaya and the brand Alamelu, which is a luxury ready-to-wear. He's a Cornell engineering graduate, but he's familiar with loom, and he bridges his professional training with a family legacy, which is, I guess, more than 600 years old. He hails from weavers, and they've been working with various royalties and patronages with them over the years. He founded the House of Angri in 2001, and I would like to ask Mr. Radharaman that he has a lovely article which has come into the mint today, which talks about reviving the weave, National Handloom Day, and keeping the conversation going, keeping the debate going. How is Angri being the change maker? How can we revive handlooms in today's scenario?
Thank you, Richa. Thank you for the introduction. Lovely to be on this panel. Very educative already. I don't want to repeat what points have already been made. So I'm just going to bring to this conversation my perspective. As you mentioned, I come from a family of master weavers, and I've been an entrepreneur and a designer and I've worked in various capacities across different labels for my company. I think the gist of the National Handloom Day conversation is about how handlooms can be made and sustained and made more relevant in the context. And I think from that perspective, my own experience has taught me that three things are paramount. One, I think we need to look at handlooms more as an industry and as a self-sustaining business and as a part of a larger ecosystem and an economy, rather than view it as merely a craft or a cottage industry which needs to be preserved. I have absolutely no problem with state intervention. And at the risk of contradicting some of your previous panelists who are very learned and very esteemed, I would say that world over, textiles as an industry get state intervention, get state aid. And I'm not talking about developing countries, I'm talking about developed countries like Italy and Belgium, where governments subsidize the textile industry because it is world over a huge employment generator. But that apart, I think in India, we need to look beyond the role of the state. We need to look beyond the role of the government. We need to think of empowering our craftspeople and various stakeholders across the board. And here, I don't mean to say that we need to set over another and so on. I don't subscribe to the powerloom versus handloom debate. It may be very controversial to say that on a panel like this on National Handloom Day, but I just don't subscribe to that because I come from a family of master weavers, and I can say with some degree of experience and authority that these are not necessarily competing industries. They can be complementary. In India, we are very fortunate that we have a huge heritage and a history and a legacy of hand weaving and handicraft. And that legacy is something that has lived with us for thousands of years. I think we are not giving ourselves enough credit if we were to say that our hand weaving legacy will be wiped out in the present milieu, because it has survived thousands of years. And I firmly feel that the role of various stakeholders here needs to be really rethought. For one, as a member of the design community, I would say that designers have to take it upon themselves to contemporize these crafts, to make them relevant to a younger and a more global audience. I think globally there is a great appreciation for craft, and there is an increased appreciation for hand weaving and various other techniques related to handicraft in general. Also because it plays to the current argument in favor of sustainability. We, I think, have to integrate Indian handlooms and handicrafts into that supply chain and into that ecosystem, because we have a lot going for us if we do that. As one of your panelists had mentioned earlier, we are the world's largest handloom producer by far, by a huge distance. There is no competition in this one area with any other country. And today the world is clamoring for sustainable textiles and has actually taken a step back post-pandemic from the fast fashion, hyper aggressive, hyper, fast changing use and throw kind of fashion that was in vogue a few years ago. So I think that our first goal as designers and as stakeholders is to see how we can integrate ourselves into this global supply chain. The second point I would also add very quickly is that we need to think, like I said, beyond state intervention and find ways to bring all stakeholders. Now, one of the things that I feel is lacking in our country is consumer awareness and education about various forms of textiles and indeed various forms of crafts. And I think all appropriate stakeholders, and here I don't just mean from the industry, I mean also people from beyond, need to kind of participate in this and need to be sensitized, need to be made aware of the kind of economic dividend that we are missing out on if we don't do this. Because like we all said, I think we have a golden opportunity as a country to sort of mine this huge resource that is at our disposal, which is our handloom and handicraft legacy. And to be able to do that effectively, I think we need greater and broader participation from across the board. So I don't necessarily refer to industry participants. I mean others from outside of the fold of industry to come in to also highlight and create consumer awareness. Just to give you one very brief example at the expense of running, of lengthening this conversation, I would say that when Jeff Bezos, who was the founder and the man behind Amazon, wore an Ikkat bandi like the one I'm wearing today for his Meet the Press in India, it generated the kind of attention that was hitherto not given to something which is essentially an Indian hand-woven fabric. And I think that is the kind of, public awareness that is required. Those are the kinds of instances that we need to see more of in order to generate greater positive attention and consumer awareness for the possibility that we have for actually making very fashionable and uber cool products using handcraft. And I think it's a very dated argument to assume that handicraft and what is made by hand cannot be fashionable. I think the world over now, there is a recognition that this is what is fashionable. and that this is fashion that is sustainable. This is fashion that is timeless, that transcends seasonality, that transcends occasions, and will last many lifetimes if it is preserved well. So my limited point here is that we need to broaden these arguments and look at how we can empower stakeholders, how we can think beyond state to make this a more economically productive and viable industry. And there is no end to the kind of potential that this industry offers. And I would say to any young designer or any young participant to please always keep this at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Radharaman. I would now invite Mrs. Kalyani Pramod into the conversation. She's the sole proprietor of Common Threads. She's also director, Shuttles and Needles. She's a fiber designer and artist, a graduate from textile design from NIT, very passionate about traditional craft and desires to bring a sense of design to them, whether it is the belt weaving of Rajasthan or documenting the Bedouin craft of Middle East. She has worked with the Toda of Nilgiris, and her work has been presented at the Victoria Albert Museum, London. A calling across time was her love for handlooms, where in a central government project, she has touched the life of 19,500 poor weavers and help them, upskill them with design intervention. She's also involved as a textile artist with Common Threads, and her contribution is outstanding as far as craft is concerned. I would want to bring her into the conversation that how is it that we can be the change makers? How do we bring the young into this trade? Because we see that, the young talent is moving away. So how do we bring about a change in the perception of handlooms? How do we bring a young artist or a young weaver into the fray? Ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad to be in this panel. I've heard all the other speakers earlier, very eminent people, but I have what I have seen, I can say about. I don't want to paint a picture where everything is hunky-dory and beautiful and everything. We know what our craftsmen are. We know what they are capable of. Our traditional crafts of handloom, and the different kinds of weaving techniques that we have all over India. Very, very different from each state. But I don't see any youngsters coming forward. No weaver's son or daughter wants to be a weaver. And that is my main concern today. If we are going to do a day of handloom day, it should be a year-long, years of handloom talk. It shouldn't be just restricted for one day, number one. Number two, I feel that how do we encourage the younger people into this field? How do we give them that same, the feel that it is important to be a weaver? You are no lesser by being a craftsperson. I think that's where the education has to come in. That's where the awareness has to come in. One of the things I have been working, I have villages and talking to every weaver's family, and they all say, no, we don't want to bring our children into this profession. I'm sure even the master weaver sitting in this panel might have the same opinion, but I don't know about his opinion, but that's what is the general opinion all over India. So I feel what is important is awareness, and I realize that just pushing the weavers community to weave and say working as a weaver is important is not only one task, but the other side the urban people, urban children, and urban everyday household should have a loom and weave. And that is when you will find people really, the villagers looking at, oh my God, what I do in an everyday life, I see my father, my mother, my whole family involved in this. These kids are getting trained and are weaving. That is something which will make younger weavers come up. In the weaving sector, that is the artisans' children, you are having a new set of people employed in this. They feel proud to be a weaver. I am a weaver. You introduce me as a designer, as this, as a fiber artist and all that. But when I say I'm a fiber artist, I'm also a weaver.
So I think this is a good time to bring Arjun Pal sir into the conversation. आपका क्या कहना है अर्जुन जी कि नए लोगों को हम कैसे जोड़ सकते हैं हथकरघा के साथ? आप म्यूट पे हैं अर्जुन जी, आप अनम्यूट कीजिए।
जी, अभी वो सबसे बढ़िया बात है कि अभी क्या होता है कि सब जो यंगर जनरेशन आ रहा है वो काम छोड़ के चल जाते हैं। अरे वो जो मैडम जो बोलते हैं कि हम एक वीवर जो प्राउड फील करना, वो सबसे बड़ा चीज है। तो हाँ, मेरा जो काम करते हैं इस काम में मैं हीरो है, मेरा जो काम है सबसे अच्छा है, और इस काम के बारे में ज्यादा जानना जरूरी है। व्हाट इज वीविंग, जो लोग वीविंग करते हैं कितना परेशान करते हैं, वो जो वीविंग होता है, इट इज नॉट ए कंपनी, इट इज ए कला। उसको के लिए जो हाथ का जो मजबूतनेस, जो फाइन करना पड़ेगा, वो काम सब लोग का पास में पहुंच जाते हैं तो लोग को दिमाग से आ जाते हैं। तो वीविंग एक कला है, उसको बचाना हमारा धर्म है, और हम सब लोग को पहनने के देने के लिए जो मजा आता है उसको फील करना है। तो थोड़ा यंग सब लोग गांव छोड़ के चल जाते हैं पैसा के लिए। पैसा सबको मिल सकते हैं बट कला किसी को नहीं मिलता है। वो समझने
एक बात बताइए, सॉरी इफ आई एम इंटरप्टिंग,
प्लीज गो अहेड।
एक बात बताइए अर्जुन जी, आपने कभी कोशिश किया है छोटे बच्चों को सिखाने की?
जी जी जी, अभी तक मैंने 100 से ज्यादा छोटा छोटा लड़का जो 16-17 ईयर्स ओल्ड मैट्रिक पास करने के बाद में जो गांव में घूमते हैं, वो सब के घर के लाके अभी मेरा साथ रख के फिर भी उनको पूरा मास्टर बनाया मैंने, सोच के उनका दिमाग से हैंडलूम क्या है, हैंडलूम का मजा क्या आ रहा है, हैंडलूम का होता है। हम हैंडलूम का हीरो बन जाते हैं। लोग सोचते हैं कि हैंडलूम कुछ नहीं है, हैंडलूम एक जैसे मजदूर लोग काम करते हैं ऐसे सोच के लोग छोड़ देते हैं। नहीं, वो तो कला है, उसको बचाने के लिए जो मजा, वो उसको बचाने के लिए
एक और छोटा सवाल मैं करना चाहूंगी अर्जुन जी कि आप जो सिखा रहे हैं ये अपने फैमिली या बिरादरी के लोगों को ही सिखा रहे हैं, या आप कोई भी अगर इंटरेस्ट दिखाए तो आप उसको सिखाने को तैयार हैं?
कोई भी लोग को इंटरेस्ट दिखाए सबको सिखाने के लिए मेरा इच्छा है। मैं खींच के लाके लेके घर पे लेके आएंगे और उनको सिखाने के लिए प्रयास किया।
आप कभी
और आराम से सिखाने के, हंस के सिखा देते हैं, जैसे उनका दिमाग से हैंडलूम घुस जाता है तो और हैंडलूम छोड़ के कोई लोग नहीं जाता है।
So Prasanna ji, I would want you to join this conversation and give us some pointers. How can we bring young weavers and young talent into weaving?
I've already told you it's a problem. It's a problem of livelihoods. The problem of livelihoods cannot be tackled by saying that it is kala. I appreciate Arjun ji's passion, and I also appreciate that it is a kala. But finally, it is livelihoods, and livelihoods it cannot change unless there is cumulative action done not just by individuals, but by governments, by industry, by the entire society. You see, otherwise it will not do. In Karnataka, for example, the last 2 years, the weavers are concentrated mostly in North Karnataka on the Krishna river belt. You know, their houses were flooded before COVID because Krishna went into spate 2.5 years back. Their houses are not even built even today. And then for last 2 years, they've almost not worked. There are thousands of looms which are lying idle and rotting. You see, that's why I said livelihoods is the question, and livelihoods will produce, course, this thing, if we do that first, and then the course thing will have to be made fashionable, as Radharaman very rightly put. He put the question of, sustainability of the changing thing in the, in the fashion world and all that. And even Pramod ji, she is talking correctly, except that I would say that you have gone up to an extent. Important issue that the young people are not coming to the thing. If they have to come, they will have to be paid that 500 or 600 rupees they earn elsewhere here. Here, they're not even earning 200 rupees. In Karnataka, these days, they earn less than 200 rupees.
So, Mr. Radharaman, please go ahead.
I appreciate that, Prasanna ji. The only thing is that unless we start respecting the weavers and saying that the weavers are, that is, weaving is one of the ways of livelihood, and we paid the minimum wages which is set for other things. No carpenter comes and works for you unless it's about 700 rupees. Even a gardener doesn't work unless it's a 700 rupee wage per day. Why is it that we cannot think of a weaver that way?
So,
Why aren't we giving that importance to a weaver? Kala ek taraf, karigari ek taraf paisa. Paisa milega, to kala bhi rahega, karigar bhi rahega.
Very well said, Kalyani ma'am. I would want to now bring in Mr. Radharaman, because I can, and with the the resources that you have, what are the measures that Angri is taking to bring in the young talent into the fray?
Yeah, so Richa, I think you overstate the Pesa part. See, there are lots of making money. Being in handlooms and fashion is the difficult way of making money. I know that because, like you mentioned earlier, I come from an engineering background, and what drove me to come into this industry is my family background and the legacy and the passion that I have to sort of continue this legacy and take it forward. Otherwise, I would have been an investment banker in California by now. But that's besides the point. I think what is relevant here to the conversation is, as some of your panelists have mentioned, is in order to bring young talent into the fold, both at the manufacturing end, that is at the crafts level, and further downstream in terms of other disciplines. I think it's very, very important that one, as the panelists have mentioned, it is important to sort of make the profession appear more dignified. There is a huge stigma attached in many weaving communities that, hey, if I continue to be a weaver, I won't even find a bride, and that I know from personal experience. Many of my master crafts people say that, oh, nobody wants to give my son his or her girl's hand in marriage if he continues with this profession. Even though, mind you, some of them actually earn more in their profession as weavers than they would otherwise. Just to give you an example, in Kanchipuram district, which is very close to Chennai, when Sri Perumbudur industrial area got highly industrialized because of many industrial units coming in, many of the weaving families left their professions and sent their youngsters to work in these large factories as watchmen and as manual labor, as opposed to earning a higher wage doing what they did. And this is something they've been doing for many hundreds of thousands of years. So there was a huge exodus of labor from weaving to other industry. And to my mind, that is natural, because industrialization is something that cannot be sort of vilified. But at the same time, what has also happened is there has been a reverse migration in subsequent years, especially post 2010 and the financial 2010, which now seems to be a long time ago, when people started realizing that with that exodus of labor and the demand revival that we also saw in handlooms coming back, the craft actually started paying more. And they found it much better to stay at home and work from the comfort of their own and earn a higher living, as opposed to going to factories where their jobs were actually not assured. Because in a factory, if the management decides to lay off people, where will they go for a livelihood? So that is a process that they've gone through and they have learned now. However, I would definitely say that there is room for greater awareness at that level in terms of making that job appear more respectable. And as Madam Pramod mentioned, it's very important to improve remuneration, to improve working conditions. Now, at the House of Angadi, what we've done, not now, but for the last 70 years, I mean, from my grandfather's time, is that we've always believed that working conditions for the weaving community needs to improve. So we went out of our way in rural areas of Tamil Nadu, where my family comes from, to actually provide housing, to provide education free of cost, to provide healthcare facilities to our craftspeople, to provide, actually pay for their weddings in many instances, where the weaving families have been working with us for generations. But that is our example. And all of that was possible because the whole activity was financially and economically viable. That's why I began by saying that the most important thing that we can do, and as Prasanna ji has also mentioned, I think the most important thing that we can do is to make this subject, whether you call it handlooms or handicraft, make it economically viable, integrate it into the global supply chain. And then this country will have such an economic dividend that because we are a monopoly when it comes to handlooms and handicrafts virtually in the world today. So I think that we have such a great prospect in front of us if we are able to do this. I also feel that very limited point, I think when you see young designers who patronize handcraft, and I'm saying this because this is an NIFT hosted program, I would say it even otherwise, but especially because it is on the platform of NIFT, who take up handlooms and they create beautiful garments, whether they are stitched garments or whether they are saris or any other, even if they are home textiles. It automatically sort of positions the product that the craftsman is making as superior in many ways. And I think that will also add to this argument, and that will also glamorize the profession. And I think that will definitely go a long way. One measure that I had been advocating for many months now, and many years, I would say, is that UNESCO needs to recognize Indian handicrafts, especially the textile related crafts, as a part of the intangible heritage of humanity. It's a shame that while Dhakai Jamdani is recognized as intangible heritage of humanity by UNESCO, India has not even made an entry for any of our crafts to be recognized as part of the intangible heritage of humanity when we have an embarrassment of riches. And I think that is something that I would definitely believe that government of India can take up. And I think that that is something that should be done, and that will set an example for many clusters of India and many crafts for India. And those are some of the measures. There are many more that can be taken up for sure.
That's a wonderful point that you have made, Mr. Radharaman. Looking at the time, I think the one last question which I would want to throw at the panel would be that because we are talking about livelihoods, we are talking about a craft making money, but sometimes in the popularity of one single craft, it kind of shadows the other lesser known crafts of the region. So if you look at, there has been Ikat in Karnataka earlier, but it does not see the light of the day. We have Ikat is also supposed to have been in Madurai at some point, and Mashru also weaves. I was reading somewhere and it said that Mashru was also at some point being woven in the south. But looking at all the, but at Tamil Nadu and we only think of Kanjivaram. When we think of Karnataka, we are thinking of Mulkalmuru and Ilkal. So are we in the process of romanticizing a particular popular craft, shadowing the lesser known craft? And us as intellectuals sitting here, how are we sensitizing ourselves to this? What is the state? Because all these indigenous crafts are equally important for sustaining the livelihood that Prasanna ji was talking about. So in the course of development, does that make sense to lose these lesser known craft? I would like to start this debate with Prasanna ji. What is your viewpoint on this, and how should we approach this?
You are right that India is so rich in the various both weaving traditions, dyeing traditions, tie and dye, and whatnot. It is the richness of these traditions and the variety that is of pride to India. I have no problem about that. But I want to go back to the first session, because there is one little thing which we need to take care of, which is the problem of spurious stuff coming as handlooms. It is a problem which started with Khadi. Right when Gandhiji was trying to make Khadi popular, already, the mills were producing the imitation of Khadi. And this is what actually came in the way, and Gandhiji tried to stop it. But today, let me tell you, we made a survey, and in Andhra, for example, is being sold as handloom and khadi is actually powerloom stuff. And this is something which can be prevented. I mean, not prevented just by law alone, but it can be prevented jointly by all of us. You see, I am being essentially a producer. We make foray into design and we make foray into the things, but I am basically a man who is in production, and I believe that unless this is taken care of, all these things will be meaningless. Because let me tell you, Kanjivaram sari today, if you have to find an actually woven sari, it is almost impossible. Mulkalmur sari, which was still about 4 years back, pure silk, now actually powerloom stuff. Every sector is getting consumed. Not only powerloom, China is producing all these things and sending it to you. So we should think of that. Otherwise, done excellent discussion today. I am really happy about it. But unless you take care of this, nothing is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kalyani, I would like to hear you on this. And we come back to the question is that the lesser known crafts are getting completely overshadowed by the popular. Would you want to throw some light there?
Before I go on to the lesser known crafts, even the known crafts, like Prasannaji said, is becoming corrupted. The reason being, when we go, it's no more khadi. we call khadi, which is hand spun, hand woven. But I don't find anywhere hand spun, hand woven material. There is already in the khadi board, they are selling everything. They themselves don't know where they should stop. They should only sell khadi, where they know very clearly it's hand spun, hand woven, and then they produce it. So you bring in better things, hand spun, hand woven, natural dyed material, you're going to rule the world. I feel that is an important element because we are mixing powerloom products with handloom products. So handloom never gets, and in the reason we are giving ourselves is handloom per se cannot produce that much. Production is small, which is if every weaver's home, the music of the loom continued, there would be no lack of production. Handlooms will survive. But if that is our motive, that's never the general motive. But anyway, that's one of the points. Now, whether we are giving importance to certain traditional crafts, yes, it seems so unfair. Number one, we have all these kind of different exhibitions and hearts and things like that, where from say Tamil Nadu will see a stall where somebody is weaving something very different and they will say, oh, he's selling a lot more, let me do the same work. So we're diluting it. So being NIFT, I feel very important. One of the areas, pick up those every sector, every area, like if it's Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, pick up every region and you have so many different varieties of fabrics available, techniques available. Kanjivaram, they have lost all their skills of hand techniques. There is no more anywhere which is what we call korvai. That's gone. Why? Because it's not, you can't produce as much. If you give the weaver the what is worth the time and the skill, you pay for that, why not? So keep it as a niche. Don't lose all the traditions in the bargain. At least keep a few running, recognize it, publish it. Come saying that Karnataka has this number of techniques. Tamil Nadu has this, Orissa has these techniques. In Orissa, I will ask Arjun sir, डबल इक्कत आजकल कोई बनाता ही नहीं है
जी,
बोलते हैं डबल इक्कत में बहुत टाइम लगता है, कोई खरीदने को तैयार खरीदने को तैयार। मैं बताती हूँ कि आपको कमीशन में डालना चाहिए, किसी को आप लोगों को ये टेक्निक जोड़ के रखने के लिए some mentors have to be there. Some patrons have to be there, and we have patrons. So it's very important. Mr. Radharaman did say, yes, if Mr. Radharaman says that I want to hold double ikat fabrics or double ikat saris, fabrics converted into garments, double ikat, it'll be a small contribution. There will be a weaver willing to produce it. And there will become 10 weavers later. Take a step at a time, but do it.
Thank you, Pramod ma'am. And
Kalyani Pramod.
Kalyani Pramod ma'am.
Married to that man.
Apologies. So Kalyani Pramod ma'am, thank you so much for your kind words. And I would bring it, I think we are almost nearing the end of our talk. unless there is a pressing thought with Mr. Radharaman or Mr. Arjun. Arjun ji, अगर आप कुछ important बोलना चाहते हैं, तो please go ahead. And I will ask the audience in the meantime to think of some questions, because we'll be opening up for questions from the audience after that. Yes, Mr. Radharaman, please.
So I will just say one thing, because she specifically asked me about patronizing double Ikka. No, I'm very happy that you brought it up, because I don't want to say something which as sounds like I'm promoting our company or our brand on this discussion. But I will say that we have been reviving both Korvai and double Ikka. Korvai, I think you will be very happy to note, has not only double Korvai like how it used to be done in the olden days, but 2 steps ahead and done triple Korvai, which means you do joining of the border 3 times over. As you rightly said, it's about paying people what is worth their time. And one of the main reasons why Korvai went out of vogue in the traditional districts like Kanchipuram and Araning was because there was a blanket ban on child labor, and earlier they used to employ children to assist in the weaving process. Now, that's another discussion for another day, but as you rightly pointed out, it's all about remunerating people fairly for their work, and then also promoting the product, and people becoming, consumer awareness increasing, and people willing to pay for something that has been done, something which is authentic as opposed to something which is a replica. And Mr. Prasanna mentioned about this fact that there was spurious, articles. And I think that it's all about educating the consumer and making them aware of what is legitimately handloom and what is not. Making them also be willing to pay the extra price, because at the end of the day, that's the consumers are ultimately the kingmakers here. So they have to actually be willing to pay the price for whatever is an article of craft. So I think that it finally comes down to that.
Yes, Anaji,
I just want to tell you about the question that you raised. You see,
Yes.
the styles and techniques have always been mobile in this country. There's been a tremendous mobility, and you can find techniques from the north coming into south and from the south to and all that. As an example, I would like to tell you about Pochampalli. Everybody thinks that Pochampalli Ikkat has been there for centuries. It is not there been centuries. It is Kamla Devi who brought it, because Vinoba Bhave, who started his Bhudan from Pochampalli. We should realize that. And Pochampalli, the land given was a barren land. They could not cultivate. So Vinoba rings up Kamla Devi and asks her help. Kya karu main? And Kamla Devi arranges for the great weavers of Orissa to go there, train them and all that. And Pochampalli Ikka. And this is the latest thing, which is hardly a century back. But for example, the silk, the way it traveled from Banaras, first it comes from China to Banaras through the Himalayan ranges, and then comes slowly into South India. And the way we used is because we knew that it was a very expensive imported thing. Till Tipu actually started producing silk in our soil, on our soil, silk was brought from outside, and the entire styling of silk, whether it is in Kanchipuram, Karnataka, or anywhere, is because of these things. So we were masters in taking things and giving things. And so, these have not been compartmentalized styles. This is a wrong notion that they have been compartmentalized styles. Our weavers have been extraordinarily creative in adopting things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prasanna ji. We are really, we've come to the end, because we are, we've crossed our time limit, but I will still take a couple of questions. So Vivek Vacha, the question is, how can I start an apparel fashion brand of handloom with artisans, and how can I do it to do it on a small scale with weavers in India, where and which part of the country can I approach? It's Prasanna ji, would you like to take this up or?
Well, we are the largest producers of natural handloom fabric in the country. Anybody who wants to do the garmenting out of it can approach Charkha. We produce almost 30,000 meters of naturally dyed handloom fabric per month. And this is all done by women. These women, interestingly, were not even weavers. They were OBC women and Dalit women. We trained them. And now, of course, weaving is also done by the weaver community in the North Karnataka. Anybody can come to us, and cotton handloom, cotton naturally dyed handloom, we can supply any amount.
Thank you, Prasanna ji. I think this also answers the question of Nandini. How can we contact and learn handicraft from Prasanna ji? So you can contact Charkha, the trust, and I am sure you will get information there. Yes, Mr. Radharam.
I just wanted to say one thing with all due respect. I appreciate the broader point that India has always been a country that has absorbed craft traditions from around the world. I have mentioned that even in my article today in the Mint. But I would also say that this idea that somehow silk and the rearing of silk and sericulture was introduced to India from China is a vexed question. It's a huge debate in itself. I know that popular scholarly opinion seems to credit China with the origin of sericulture. There is much evidence to suggest in our ancient texts that the use of silk and indeed sericulture itself was practiced in India eons before it was even discovered in China. There are Rigvedic texts which have specific words for the use of silk. It is another matter that India has not contested this point globally. I will leave it at that because I do not want to bring about a fresh debate or an argument. But I would definitely say, as somebody from Karnataka, which is, India, said that I would definitely want to say that this is something that we should all be mindful of, and we should definitely contest in future occasions any argument which says that silk originated purely in China. I think it simultaneously originated in India. That is my view. So I just want to say that with all.
I didn't say that silk originated in China. I only said silk was imported from China. Not all the silk. The silk that is used now, silk which was later produced by us in Karnataka, was initially being imported from China. We have always been using silk, but silk. Anyway, we'll not get into that debate.
Okay, I think I'll take one last question, which is from Vibha Arvind, and I think I would ask Mr. Radharaman to throw light. How do we walk the fine balance between building a commercially vibrant fashion business out of indigenous crafts and loom technique, honor the time and effort that goes behind making these fabrics?
I think the point that I had made earlier holds true here. It's about, applying design very thoughtfully in keeping with the aesthetic requirements of the current time. I think in India, we make this mistake of saying that something which is made by hand needs to be paid more just because it is made by hand. Now, please bear in mind, this is a very nuanced point that I'm trying to make. The role of design is to create meaningful differentiation in the product. And if design can add value to the product aesthetically, people will be willing to pay the price. In other words, simply put, if I like how something looks, I will try to buy it. I will aspire to own it. The role of the designer is to make the product aspirational and more worthy of the consumer that he or she is. And by doing so, and by making the product aesthetically more beautiful, you create that value chain for yourself, which then empowers the craftsman to the last mile. And I think that is essentially what the role of the designer is in this whole ecosystem. And I think designers should aspire to do, which is do meaningful design intervention with handlooms and handicraft, make sure that the product is differentiated to such a manner that aesthetically it is such a compelling, it makes such a compelling argument to the end consumer that they appreciate it for its aesthetic value and its beauty as much as they appreciate it for the fact that it is made by hand. There needs to be a balance of both these points. And once that is there, and there are things that you can do by hand which you can never do by machine. And therefore, I think that once we appreciate as designers those very, very important technical differences between what can be done by hand and what can be done by machine, and concentrate on those aspects which can be only made by hand, you automatically have a superior product, which then will find many takers. And I think that, to my mind, is the approach that we have followed. And that is what I would advocate more designers to continue.
Kalyani ma'am.
I want to add one thing. What Mr. Radharaman said was absolutely true. I also feel in our education, design education system, I know I'm talking to NEFT, Bangalore, design education system itself, we have to create designers who know about textiles. We have to create fashion designers who have some knowledge on textiles. So they can easily say that, okay, these are the techniques which can not be done by the power loom. They are completely hand done techniques. That has to be recognizable for a designer, which is where the gap I am seeing, because I've been associated with NEFT for a long period of time. I see that divide happening a lot, because a fashion designer doesn't know the textiles part of it. Textile designer seems to know a little bit surface area on textile, different kinds of techniques which are in textiles. Just have one part of fashion design course, one part of textile design course, where you are dedicating yourself to hand loom, hand woven, hand crafted techniques, so that they understand it. It should not be just a 10-day, a quick documentation, and then you're trying to tell the particular craft cluster what they should do. No. It should be a long term where the students of design become learners from the craftspeople.
Kalyani ma'am, I would like to interject here, because we do teach our students the appreciation of Indian handlooms and crafts, and it is run over 2 semesters. So, but we would take your suggestion, and maybe we need to stress a little bit more and get the best out of the students. Thank you for your comment. I think there's one persistent question. I think if it can be answered, I will leave it to anybody who would want to take it up. Is there somewhere we can get a list of struggling clusters who are in desperate need of help economically and culturally? This would be the last question for the day, and it's open to the panel, anybody who would like to take it.
I think the best resource, I mean, I wouldn't call it struggling, but I think the best resource would be, I mean, there are many members of this panel of themselves, the audience on that, but the best resource would be, the government's craft census itself, because the government's craft census, which I think is a publicly available document, mentions what is the strength of craftspeople in various clusters of India. So I think that would be one resource that is available in the public domain. And of course, beyond that, there are many craft-related institutions and organizations and NGOs which would be able to enlighten whoever is interested in understanding. And the Development Commissioner Handlooms in every state or every region is also a very good resource base.
Thank you, Mr. Radha. जाते जाते आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे 2 शब्द अंत में?
जी एक्चुअल राधाराम जी जो बोले कि एक हैंडलूम सेक्टर में डिजाइनर का रोल सबसे बड़ा है। एक डिजाइनर, और मैम भी जो बताया कि डिजाइनर आते हैं और घूम के 10 दिन का जो प्रोग्राम ठीक, वो डिजाइनर नहीं है। वो आके फैशन डिजाइन और हैंडलूम डिजाइन, सॉरी डिस्टर्ब होता है। हाँ, वो हैंडलूम डिजाइनर और जो फैशन डिजाइन का अंतर, बहुत सारी अंतर है। जो हैंडलूम डिजाइन वो गांव के आके बुनकर के घर पे थोड़ा सा लर्निंग करना जरूरी है। और जो डिजाइन सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है, एक डिजाइनर के बिना एक नया सोच का साड़ी और ड्रेस मटेरियल जो भी हो वो नहीं निकल सकते हैं। डिजाइनर का रोल सबसे बड़ा है। और जो डिजाइनर आते हैं वो बुनकर का घर पे आते हैं, यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा सीखना है। और सीखना मतलब कि कैसे हैंडलूम बनता है, उसका बाद में डिजाइन करते हैं तो डिजाइन का डेवलप होता है और हैंडलूम आगे बढ़ता है।
धन्यवाद अर्जुन जी, आपने बहुत अच्छी बात कही। और इससे जो निकलता है कि देयर हैज टू बी अ सिनर्जी बिटवीन द डिजाइनर, बिटवीन द वीवर, एंड together we need to create a sustainable ecosystem where we are looking of our artisans, we are celebrating the craft in the process and bring dignity to the craft as much as possible. Thank you very much. I would thank the entire panel for being here. Prasanna ji, Arjun Pal ji, Kalyani Pramod,
जी
and Mr. Radharaman. Thank you so much for bringing this conversation, bringing this deep, we do have a great thought, UNESCO, Indian. Thank you so much for bringing it to light. And we have everybody looking into it today, hearing it, and I hope somehow can be instrumental in pushing this agenda, because definitely with the kind of resources that we have, the diversity of crafts that we have, I'm surprised that we are not yet on the list. So thank you very much, and it was a very enlightening discussion, and I would want to thank you everybody for being part of this as well, because they have been patient since morning, and thank you so much for this entire day.